Hello, it's Matthew here from the Nations of Sanity project. I'm just doing a quick video on what makes the Nations of Sanity project different from other projects. There's lots of different ideas and causes and projects out there that offer up ideas for how we can change the world and how we can change our societies for the better. But the Nations of Sanity is different from all of those. And I'm just doing a quick video here to explain why and how it's different. So for anyone who doesn't know, the Nations of Sanity project is built on the assertion that the only way to create a truly free society with truly equal rights is to establish the non-aggression principle as the law through a universal peace agreement. And for anyone who doesn't know what the non-aggression principle is, that's the moral principle that comes from the concept of self-ownership, which is just the idea that every individual has right and responsibility over only their own self. Now, the reason why this is different from other projects and ideas is because this basic assertion is actually undeniable. It is objectively true. It's not a subjective opinion. It's not me saying, oh, I think the world will be better if we establish the non-aggression principle as the law, although I do think that. But what I'm asserting here as an actual undeniable fact is that the only way that we can have equal rights is if our right over our own self is the only right that is universally recognized, because the right over our own self is the only right that we can all have in equal measure. So it is objectively true to say that the only way we would have equal rights under the law is if the law is the non-aggression principle. The other thing that is objectively true and undeniable is that the only way that you can establish the non-aggression principle as the law without contradiction is to do it through a peace agreement, because the non-aggression principle, as I say, is the moral principle that comes from the concept of self-ownership, which is the idea that everyone has right over only their own self. So under that principle, you can't rule over others. You can't enslave them. You can't aggress against them. You can't rob them, rape them, murder them, assault them. All of those things are clear and obvious violations of the non-aggression principle. So if you can't rule people, then you can't have a ruling government that would establish laws under their ruling authority. So the only way that we can establish this principle as law without contradiction is to establish it as the terms of a universal peace agreement, so that it's not established as the law because of any ruling authority that has the authority to say this is the law, but we're establishing it as the law through a universal peace agreement that establishes it as the terms of peace, simply based on this universal understanding that every individual has a right over their own self. So it's not law because of my authority or because of anybody else's authority. It's law because of a simple concept that we all recognize and understand, which is the concept of self-ownership, which is, as I say, is the idea that everyone has right over only their own self. And the reason why this is different from other projects and ideas is because other projects and ideas offer things and ways in which we can run society, how we can have different economic systems, different ways of life. And some of these ideas are good, some of these ideas are bad. And, you know, who am I to say what's good and bad? You know, so some of these ideas perhaps need to be tried and tested. Some of them are perhaps a bit more obvious as to whether they would be successful or not. But the point is all of them would have to be in accordance with the non-aggression principle. They would have to fit into this paradigm of the non-aggression principle and respecting people's self-ownership, because if they didn't, then whatever the system is that's being offered would be by definition criminal. And any system that's being offered that is in line with what the Nations of Sanity is presenting, i.e. the non-aggression principle and self-ownership, and doesn't violate that universal principle, is not criminal. And whether or not it's a system or a society or a way of life that you in particular would want to be a part of is irrelevant to the fact that people that do want to pursue that way of life would have the right to do so. So this is why the Nations of Sanity project is so important, and this is what sets it apart from other projects and ideas that are saying, you know, let's do this, let's do that. I'm not saying let's do this, let's do that. I'm saying, look, if we want a free society with truly equal rights, then as a matter of objective fact, the only way we can have that is to establish the non-aggression principle as the universal law. And the only way we can do that without contradiction is to do it through a peace agreement. So the idea presented by the Nations of Sanity to establish the non-aggression principle as the law through a universal peace agreement is Undeniable. And I ask people to really consider what's being asserted here because, there are many other projects and ideas, and the Nations of Sanity project itself offers other ideas on how we can run how we can run society. We offer ideas for alternatives to taxation, because obviously taxation is theft, but we offer voluntary alternatives that don't violate the non-aggression principle. We offer ways in which we can have collectives that can operate and offer the same sort of services we expect from government, but without the coercion that you get from ruling governments. And there's many other ideas that we present for how we can run society in a way that would be better for everybody. But these are ideas that are, again, subjective. They're my opinion, and I offer them for people to scrutinize. But something that, although it's still there for people to scrutinize, something that I don't think can really be debated is the underlying assertion of this project, is the simple claim that the only way to have a free society is to establish the non-aggression principle as law through a universal peace agreement. And any project or idea or proposed economic system or proposed way of life that violates the non-aggression principle is criminal and should be violently opposed by everybody. And any system that doesn't violate that should be allowed to carry on. Whether or not you want to be part of it, whether or not you think is a good idea, is a separate conversation to whether other people have the right to pursue it. And this is why establishing the non-aggression principle as a law is just so important, because everything else is up for debate. Everything else is subjective. It's a grey area. People can agree to disagree over whether we should have a free market capitalist system where everybody just operates under that kind of system, or whether we should try to collectivize, whether we should have hybrid systems, whether we should live with, conservative values or liberal values or whatever. All of these things are things that we as free individuals should be free to pursue. But the only way we can all be free to pursue the way of life we choose is if we do so under the understanding that every single individual has right over only their own self. And if we establish a society where this is recognized as the law, then crime would be objectively defined by this basic principle, rather than be decided by the arbitrary dictates of some ruling authority like a government or a king or something like that. So anyway, I hope that's kind of clear as what I'm saying. And I hope that explains why the Nations of Sanity project is different from other projects and ideas, why it is, in my view, so much more important, simply because it's the all-important first step. Like, it's not the end of the conversation. It's not like establishing the non-aggression principle as a law would magically fix all problems. It's not going to house the homeless, it's not going to feed the hungry, it's not going to magically fix all problems. But what it will do is provide a foundation of sanity upon which we can build a better society. And as I say, any society that wants to step outside of the non-aggression principle and violate it is criminal by definition. So anyway, if anyone has any questions, please put them in the comments below, and I will speak to you all again soon.